Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you enjoyed this video, please smash that thumbs up button and subscribe for more videos like this one. And in today's video, we are going to be talking about what I read in November. So without further ado, let's get into the video. So before I start talking about the books that I read in November, I just wanted to say sorry that this video is a little bit late. I have been really unwell and also super busy. I went and took my little ones to go and see Santa. I've also been doing my Christmas shopping, and honestly I have been so busy, and on top of that, me and the babies have all been ill. Ryan actually took a few days off work himself because he was unwell, so I haven't had the opportunity to film because I've not been able to get up off the sofa. But here I am feeling a little bit better, so I thought I would take this opportunity to film. So I only read 5 books in November just because I was so busy, but I think they are the best 5 books that I have read yet. So let's get into the books. So the first book I read was Soul Searching by Lila Sage, and oh my god, this is one of my favourite books I've read this year, hands down. So good. So I read this the start of November because I was still feeling that spooky vibes, and this hands down gave it to me. So if you haven't read this book and don't know what it's about, I'll give you a brief little summary. We follow this girl who has moved away from her hometown just because she doesn't really fit in there, and she went to go and follow her photography career. And her family call her up and they're like, hey Collins, can you come back, because we've got a little bit of, you know, family trouble with their business. And she goes back, and her twin sister have this special power where they can see and hear and talk to ghosts. But since Collins moved away to go and pursue her photography career, she realised that her power has been getting quieter and quieter, and she can no longer hear ghosts anymore. But her going back to her hometown, she kind of goes back to the places that she loved when she was a child. Being back in her hometown, all this sort of floods back her power, and by the end of it she can hear and talk to ghosts again. And it's honestly a really good book, and along that sort of storyline she falls in love, and honestly it is such a sweet book. I actually gave this one 5 stars and really enjoyed it. And since reading this, I have done a little bit of research on Lila Sage, and she has got some other good books which I think I'm going to enjoy. So I need to go and order them because honestly this was a 5-star read for me, and I cannot wait to read another one of her books. The next book I read was The Perfect Marriage by Geneva Rose, and this is a 2-book series. The other one is called The Perfect Divorce, I believe, and this one again was really good. I actually follow Geneva on, I think it's Geneva or Jennifer, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong, but I actually follow her on TikTok, and her son Chase go round to American shops such as Target, Walmart, Costco, and go and sign her books. And honestly it is just the sweetest, most funniest thing I've ever watched. She will sign the books and she like spins around and she's like, woo, sign another one. And honestly I love her so much. So when her videos started coming up on my For You page, I knew I had to read one of her books, and this is the first one that I picked up. So the kind of summary of this book. So the female in the book, her name is Sarah, and she is a defense lawyer, and then her husband is the one that we kind of follow mainly in the book. So he is cheating on her. He is a writer, and the person that he's cheating on her with dies, and Sarah is, you know, fighting his case, defending him. And at the end of it there is a shocking twist, and honestly I was reading this book and I was like, oh my god, and the end of it would have never have guessed. So if you kind of like those sort of books where you've got to put together a case and try and figure it out, I highly recommend this one. I was following it and I was like, I feel so sorry for Sarah. How is she defending her husband when he's, you know, been cheating on her, and all this information is being uncovered because she didn't know? And then I get to the book and I'm like, hang on a minute, what? So I actually really want to read The Perfect Divorce because the way this book ends, I need to know what happens next. And honestly, you'd have to let me know in the comments if you've read this one and if you guessed the ending, because I certainly didn't. But I actually gave this one 4 stars. I'm not 100% sure why I didn't give it a higher rating, because it was really good, but obviously at the time there was just something that I thought was missing. So I gave this one 4 stars. The next book I read, which is a little bit different for me, is Life Inside. And this is actually a non-fiction book. So if you don't know what a non-fiction book is, it's a real book. It's nothing made up. The whole book is real. And in this case, we follow the author, Linda Carvey, who goes into prison, and this is kind of her story of what it's like inside. And I was honestly shocked. I never heard of Linda Carvey, and my sister actually picked this up for me, and she knows I kind of like the prison, you know, documentaries and stuff like that, and she picked it up not knowing it was a non-fiction book. And when I started reading it, I was then like, hang on a minute, read the back and I was like, oh, non-fiction. And that's when it kind of clicked on me what I was actually reading, and oh my god, this book was so good. So if you didn't know, Linda Carvey had a husband, I believe, who was a armed robber, and he was actually shot and killed. And when he died, she kind of was left in the situation where she had to provide for her children, and she done the only thing that she saw fit, and that was to become an armed robber herself. And she ends up getting caught and serves, I think it was 15 years in prison, but she ends up getting a few years off. I'm really sorry, I can't remember the exact time frame, but if you read this book, which I highly recommend you do, you can sort of get a little bit more information about it. But yeah, she serves like time in prison, and the thing that shocked me the most is how many times she moved from prison to prison. And not just that, how each prison is different. And I kind of knew, you know, prisons in America were different to the ones over here, the ones over here were different to ones, say, in Canada, etc. But no, just from her moving from prisons to prisons in the same location, they were all very different. For example, in one prison she was allowed a pet fish. In another prison there was no restriction, she was allowed just to wander around. In prison as well, you get given jobs and you can earn money, and yes, the money isn't anything, you know, amazing, but they still have those sort of privileges, and it really shocked me. And then halfway through the book she is released because, you know, she served her time, and you kind of think, well, I thought anyway the rest of the book was going to follow her life as she came out, you know, her doing good, doing better. But she actually gets arrested for a crime that she didn't commit this time, and her attitude towards this was like, I didn't do it. The staff kind of knew that she didn't do it, because the first time she was arrested she was like, yes, I've done it, you know, do the crime, do the time. But this time she was like, no, I didn't do it. Her attitude towards everyone was totally different, and it was actually like really cool to sort of see, you know, what life is really like inside, how they're treated. And there was also a few famous names in this book, for example the Cray twins. We also have Myra Hindley and Rose West. So if you know anything kind of about the crime world, true crime books, stuff like that, you may recognise some of those names. But if you maybe are not into non-fiction reading and are interested in the story, there is loads of documentaries and interviews over on YouTube. I actually read a few once I finished this book, because I had you know, a few questions that weren't answered. But yes, I highly recommend this one, and I actually gave this one 4.5 stars. I just felt that I couldn't give a non-fiction book 5 stars. I'm not 100% sure why, but you know, it technically would have been a 5-star book, you know, but I gave this one 4.5 stars. The next book I am still really confused about, and I still have so many questions about, but that is Make Me a Monster. And again, I was still in that spooky vibe, wanting spooky books, and you know, it had monster in it. I saw everyone pick this up around Halloween time, so I was like, you know, let's see what this is about, let's see why everyone's picked it up. And I don't like reading the backs of the books, which I have mentioned before, because I just think it's spoilers. And if I see someone talking about a book that I want to read, then I always scroll, because again, don't like spoilers. So when it came to this book, I had not knowing anything about it, all I knew was Make Me a Monster, and I don't really know what I was expecting, but what I read was far from what I did expect. I didn't even read the little things on the front which literally says the dead don't always stay dead, and that is literally what the book's about. But this book, we follow a family who work in a funeral home and also live in a funeral home, and if you're not sure what that kind of entails, they basically prep bodies for funerals. And the dad actually has a special power where he can bring back the dead, and her mum is actually one of the people that he brings back. And the daughter in this, Mika, I think is how you pronounce her name, didn't know either of this until a tragic accident happens at the end of the book, and she kind of uncovers all of this, and she actually realizes that she has the power as well. So it is actually a really, really crazy book, and I would recommend it if you want to read a book around Halloween time, which I know we've obviously just left Halloween. Or if you're kind of looking for a spooky book, I would recommend this one, but I actually gave it 3.5 stars because I just didn't enjoy it, and it actually took me quite a while to read because I was just so confused. But that being said, it was a really, really good book, and yeah, if you're kind of looking for a Halloween book, I would recommend this one. But for me, it just wasn't my kind of book that I normally would pick up, so I gave this one 3.5 stars. So the next book, before I even show you what it's about or what it is, I just want to say that there is a full video dedicated to this book over on my channel. It is called Me Reading My First Ever Horror Book, so I'm not going to speak too much about this because honestly everything you need to know is about this book. But the next and final book I read in November is Misery by Stephen King. I was about to say Make Me a Monster because it's sitting right there. No, I read Misery by Stephen King, and oh my god, this book was a roller coaster. So this is a horror book, and I don't know why. I guess it's just the spooky vibes. I just really wanted to read a horror book, so I picked this one up, and it didn't disappoint. It was really, really good, and I actually gave this one 4 stars just because I was looking for something a little bit differently. And in this book, the main male character, Paul, is writing a book, and every single time we had pages of his book, to me that book was really, really confusing. So that's also why I didn't give it a 5 stars. But if you want to know more about this book, then please head over to that video, because honestly, at the end of the book I tell you what the horror traits are in this book. You sort of see my reaction as I'm reading it, and yeah, I don't really want to repeat myself by talking about the book twice when there's a whole video dedicated to it. So that is this one, which I gave 4 stars. So that is the 5 books that I read in November, and like I said, I only read 5 books just because I've been so busy. But that being said, I actually think we had a really good month. So we had Soul Searching, which I gave 5 stars. I then had The Perfect Marriage, which I gave 4 stars. I then had Life Inside, I gave 4.5 stars. Make Me a Monster, which I gave 3.5 stars, but again, there wasn't anything bad with this book, just wasn't my type. And then we had Misery, which was 4 stars, so we actually had some really high ranking books. So now I need your recommendations. I currently own 2 Christmas books, and I would love to read quite a few before Christmas is over, and there is so many Christmas books. So please let me know in the comments your favourite Christmas book you've ever read, and I will get my hands on it and I'll read it before Christmas. I'm currently reading Flawless by Elsie Silver, so I'm not actually reading a Christmas book at the moment, but I had seen so many people talk about that book and I just had to read it because I owned it. So yeah, let me know your Christmas recommendations, and honestly, I'm so excited for Christmas. I have my tree up, I've got nearly all my Christmas presents, I have made my list for my Christmas dinner shop, and honestly I'm so excited. So I really need to get into my Christmas books. But yeah, that is everything that I read in November.